The Portrait of Isabella. In the quaint town of Hillcrest, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, stood an old Victorian mansion known as Willow House. It had been abandoned for years, with vines creeping up its walls and windows covered in dust. The townsfolk believed it was haunted and avoided it, but one man saw it as an opportunity. Thomas, a young historian and antique enthusiast, had recently inherited Willow House from a distant relative. He saw it as a treasure trove of history and decided to restore it to its former glory. He moved in with great enthusiasm, ready to uncover its secrets. As Thomas explored the mansion, he found it filled with antique furniture, dusty books, and faded portraits. One day, while rummaging through the attic, he stumbled upon a large, covered painting. Intrigued, he pulled off the dusty cloth, revealing a striking portrait of a beautiful woman in a crimson dress. The portrait was mesmerizing, almost lifelike, with the woman's piercing green eyes seeming to follow Thomas wherever he went. He decided to hang it in the grand hallway, believing it to be a masterpiece that would add character to the mansion. From that day on, strange things began to happen. Thomas would hear faint footsteps at night, and objects would be found in different places from where he had left them. One evening, while reading in the library, he glanced at the portrait and noticed something unsettling. The woman's eyes seemed to have changed, now filled with a haunting sorrow. Determined to uncover the truth behind the portrait, Thomas delved into the mansion's history. He discovered that the woman in the portrait was Isabella, the original owner of Willow House, who had mysteriously vanished over a century ago. According to the old journals he found, Isabella was known for her beauty and grace, but also for her tragic and untimely disappearance. As Thomas continued his research, the disturbances grew more frequent. He often felt a chilling presence and heard whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves. One night, he woke to find the portrait had been moved from the hallway to his bedroom, its eyes now appearing desperate and pleading. Terrified, Thomas decided to destroy the portrait, believing it to be the source of the haunting. He took it to the backyard, set it on fire, and watched as the flames consumed the canvas. For a moment, he felt a sense of relief, but it was short-lived. That night, Thomas was awakened by a cold breeze and the feeling of being watched. He opened his eyes to see Isabella, the woman from the portrait, standing at the foot of his bed. Her eyes were no longer sorrowful, but filled with rage. She pointed a finger at him, and Thomas felt an icy grip around his throat. Gasping for breath, he realized too late that destroying the portrait had released Isabella's spirit, and she was not at peace. The townsfolk found his lifeless body the next morning, his face twisted in terror. The mansion was abandoned once more, and the portrait of Isabella reappeared in the attic, untouched by the flames. To this day, no one dares to enter Willow House, for they say that Isabella's spirit still roams the halls, searching for someone to take her place in the portrait. And if you listen closely on a quiet night, you might hear the sound of her footsteps, echoing through the empty mansion.